The Office of the Arbiter for Financial Services, set up 8 years ago, is an autonomous and independent body. Its remit is to mediate, investigate and adjudicate complaints filed by eligible customers against financial services providers licensed by the MFSA, the Malta Financial Services Authority, the financial services regulator in Malta. In the second part of this interview, the Arbiter, Mr. Alfred Mifsud, outlines the judgments he has issued, how he sees the role of the Arbiter evolving in the next 12 to 18 months, anticipating certain changes in the office's remit as part of Malta's regulatory structure, and delivers his message to consumers and service providers in terms of what they can learn from the decisions of the Arbiter for Financial Services, including his expectations going forward. Coming down to judgments, in terms of judgments, can you give a breakdown of the different areas in which you were called upon to mediate, investigate and adjudicate complaints? Just some headline figures.
Yeah, I think judgments are, we have different areas where we decide complaints.
Of course.
And these would be normal investment cases.
Yes.
Most of the time what we've had were linked to pensions, you know, the investment products, but wrapped up in a pension scheme, and often wrapped up in a life policy.
Okay.
Then there could be cases related to endowment policies, which were taken way back 25 or 30 years ago, because life contracts by themselves are very long-term contracts.
Yes.
Obviously, the situation 25 and 30 years ago was very different from the current situation. Nothing stays the same over a period of 25 years. So most of the time there are a question of what expectations were given to the subscriber when this policy was sold, and what is the reality now.
Of course.
Don't forget, 25 years ago we had interest rates which were quite high, whereas you know, especially over the last 15 years, we had very low interest rates. Sometimes we had zero interest rates, and sometimes we had even negative rates. So, you know, those expectations had to be reframed by the development which happened these last few years during the duration of this life contract.
Right.
Those are the sort of decisions we've had.
Yeah.
As I said, we had issues with payments, which are fraud payments most of the time, involving both banks and virtual assets.
Yes.
And we had issues with normal insurance claims. You know,
right.
People take out insurance contracts and then travel policies or house policies,
and contents.
And for one reason or another, the insurance doesn't honor the claim, and people think that's very unfair, and they come to us, and we study each case on its own merits and issue a decision.
Very good.
What I must say is that we have a very active mediation department here, and obviously my objective is as much as possible. Most cases should be settled at the pre-mediation, at the mediation and the post-mediation stage, but before actual adjudication, because that is a healthy situation. In that way, the adjudication is left to cases where, you know, I mean, they are really needed to be adjudicated.
Very good, very good. I have a couple of questions related to how you see the office and your role continuing to evolve. So in your case, so how do you see the role of the Arbiter evolving over the next 12 to 18 months? And in the case of the office, again, can you anticipate certain changes as part of Malta's regulatory structure?
Yes, I think we have to do what we have been doing better, that's for sure. And when I say better is by making ourselves relevant to the people so that they know who we are and what service can we give. But better also in the sense that we give fair decisions and timely decisions. And I think we're making very good progress on that front. But I think there are good plans which will be announced during the course of this year, where we take on some new roles which are beyond what the legislation presently provides for. In particular, we are working with the authorities because this will be subject to specific legislation, to set up a credit review office. One of the electoral pledges which the current government has made is to set up such office where businesses, now we're talking about businesses, not individuals, who think that the bank is not being fair in giving them credit decisions on their applications. Both for new credit and for existing credits if they need to restructure them, or if the bank thinks that they have to withdraw the credit lines which they have. One hears a lot of complaints about this in the street. And businesses go to the minister doesn't have all the facts before him, and they blame banks, and the banks say we're in business, so there's a lot of competition, so something has to be wrong with the customer because it's an undue, it's a risk we are not prepared to tolerate. So this office will have the facility to enter into these individual cases. Obviously, we have to build up expertise related to credit reviews, decisions. It is something which already exists in Ireland. It's an entity, and basically we are using that model. Hopefully, apart from solving individual cases, probably we will know better where the truth lies, whether it's a question of the banks not being flexible enough to allow the credit demanded, which will help the economy to grow, or whether the customers are expecting the banks to take risks which the banks shouldn't be taking, even because regulation doesn't allow them to. So we will know, apart from the individual cases, by looking at the whole picture which will emerge, we will know where the truth lies, and if necessary, we can then make recommendations to the authorities to fill any gaps in our financial infrastructure. Maybe we are not offering services which are demanded by a developed economy, because our economy now is no longer, we can call it developing, it's a developed economy, and needs some specialized institutions who can give the credit or which banks normally do not take on, but which the economy needs for somebody else to take on. So this is one project which will probably be launched during the course of this year. There's a specific legislation which has now been more or less drafted, and it's in the consultation stage with the banks, and after that will pass through Parliament, and this office will start kicking by having a credit review office. The only difference, I must say, and that's why there is a different legislation, that such decisions can only be on a recommendation basis, whereas our current legislation gives the facility to the arbiter to give binding decisions, which are however subject to appeal. In case of credit review, those decisions will be recommendations, but they will be recommendations with a certain amount of moral weight. So it's not easy for banks to neglect those decisions.
Yes. My final question relates to your message to stakeholders. To what extent can consumers and service providers learn from the decisions of the Arbiter for Financial Services? And again, what are your expectations going forward?
Well, I think the major message which should come out, and hopefully it's coming out from our decisions, is the importance for both parties in a litigation, because it's a litigation, otherwise they wouldn't come here, to be fair. So fairness is an abstract
but
concept.
You are quantifying it through your decisions now.
You see certain cases where it is clear that one of the parties is being unfair. On one side there could be expectations which are unrealistic. On the other side, there will be an attempt to avoid clear obligations purely on technical matters.
Okay.
And my appeal to them is it's very important for the long-term health of the industry that they are fair. This is an informal mechanism, and fairness and equity is one of the major principles why they should come here. So we continue to deliver that message through our decisions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. In this two-part interview, the Arbiter for Financial Services, Mr. Alfred Mifsud, looked back at his first year in office, outlined the challenges he faced and is seeking to overcome, and explained the model for allocation of responsibility between payment service providers and payment service users in case of payment fraud scams, which he issued at the end of 2023. You can find all the information on the Office of the Arbiter for Financial Services at their website www.financialarbiter.org.mt, including a comprehensive, updated database of the Arbiter's decisions.